would say that probably my first energy experience was when I was actually still using. I was living in Florida and I got invited to go to an ayahuasca ceremony. And at the time, I was still actively in my drug use. So I didn't know anything about it, at the time. Like in my head, I was thinking, oh, this is just a great excuse to like go have some fun, right? And obviously, I was blown away in a completely different direction than I anticipated. And so I went to this ceremony and they had sent, the information leading up to it, asking us to, refrain from certain food and certain drugs and things like that. I'm sure you guys have experienced something like that.
The dieta.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right. And, I didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have because, again, I didn't really know what I was walking into. But I remember during the ceremony, the shaman that was leading it had come over to me to kind of check in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I was getting really sick. And that was kind of my first experience with something that was in this realm of the work, right? Like I always, as a young adult and even throughout my drug use, I think that there was a part of me that believed that using drugs is what made me a spiritual person or like gave me my powers,
Right.
you know? And then walking into that ceremony and having the experience with him, where he did a clearing in my womb for me. And, basically it was like, you've got a lot of dark shit inside of you, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I remember coming out of it the next morning and knowing that something had shifted, but not really knowing what it was.
Yeah.
And also not being in that full awareness yet of what the spiritual realm could offer me. So that was like the very first like real experience, I would say.
Hmm.
But it was probably about because that was in 2012. So it was probably about 6, 8 years later into recovery, into the trauma work, into, trying to heal,
Hmm.
right,
Mm-hmm.
from everything that had happened in my childhood and my drug use. And I was seeing this therapist, and he was telling me, we keep kind of almost hitting a wall with this work that we're doing because you can't connect to your trauma emotionally.
Mm.
And because I would almost talk about it like I was a fly on a wall watching it happen,
Oh, like an
right?
observer rather than a person actually living it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
how
Yeah.
you
it was it was
survive.
very robotic almost, just very emotionally disconnected from that stuff. And it was actually him who said, I think that you need something more.
Hmm.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for that because I know that that's not every therapist that exists, right? And having gone to school originally to become a therapist, they don't tell you to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he made that suggestion, and I went, and it was actually like hard at the time to find someone who did energy work because it wasn't, as visible to the collective as it is now.
Yeah.
And um, I reached out to someone who I knew was kind of interested in this stuff, and she sent me to this woman. And all I remember was she told me beforehand, um, you might like have diarrhea when you leave here.
Yeah, dude.
Like you might
Hey, at
purge
least
a
she told you,
little.
man. I didn't get that heads up.
I didn't either. I actually thought I got the flu, not the first time I had work done, but I think it was maybe like the second or third time. Um, and actually, it was at the time, it was my boyfriend's mom, this old Japanese woman. Well, I say old now, like I think however old I was back, I was in my early 20s at the time. So she probably was around my age
Right.
or
Yeah, totally.
maybe a little bit
Right.
older. But she worked on me and I got so sick the next day. And what was wild was that as soon as I was done throwing up and shitting everything that was ever existing inside of me, I felt like $1,000,000. I deep cleaned my vehicle like at the end of that day. And I remember my grandmother's boyfriend had stopped by and dropped Gatorade off at the door because, you know, if I was viral, he didn't want to get anything from me. And he drove by and saw me cleaning my truck later. And my grandma called me and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And they were like, "You know, Bill dropped Gatorade off because you were really sick earlier." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened. I feel so much better." So then I ended up talking to my boyfriend's mom and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She said, "I worked on you a lot longer than I should have for it being your first time. And I should have, you know, said something." And I was like, "Well, whatever you did, it cleared a bunch of shit literally out of my system." So, but it's, you know what? That for me, that was like the selling pitch.
Right.
Like if I didn't have that experience, I don't know that I would have believed that things were moving or shifting or changing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to double click on something you said just a minute ago, Allie, about, you know, people utilizing, you know, a lot of spiritual people have a drug addiction past or some kind of involvement with drugs and alcohol. And I anecdotally, 100% anecdotally, right? I've got no proof with this at all, but just from the clients that I've seen, from the people that I've, you know, been a part of their journey in some kind of way, I do, and also, you know, hindsight, you know, I take the anecdotal evidence that I have and I look back at my life and then I see the age that I got involved with drugs and alcohol and where I'm at now in life. And yeah, maybe I'm pushing some stuff together, but hey, it makes sense to me, right? But what I'm kind of moving towards with this idea is that like maybe so growing up in the 80s and 90s, I mean, we alluded to just 8 years ago that spirituality was still like, it was hard to find a Reiki practitioner, hard to find an ayahuasca circle outside of, you know, the actual areas that they're held in on a regular basis. And so, you know, take that 20, 30 years, 40 years in the 80s and 90s when we were born and growing up. I grew up in the South. I didn't grow up with a paternal, you know, system that was like, hey, listen to your body. What's it saying to you? You know, do you want to speak to the spirits and shit like that, right? And so the people that I feel like are finding their spiritual journeys now probably found it back when they were little babies and little kids, just didn't have either the support system, the understanding, or the communities to nurture it. And so they started doing things to dull that, right? Whether it was drinking or smoking weed or doing some kind of, you know, drug, alcohol, things like that. But to just quiet it down, because we just got so confused with the understanding or the lack thereof, and then the lack of support. And, you know, with that, the people that spend a lot of time in these liminal spaces because of like drug or alcohol induced states of mind, I do think they're touching the veil pretty closely. They just don't understand really what's going on. And so I say all that to say this: a lot of the people that I see on a you know, for my personal clients are in some kind of recovery from drugs and alcohol. And a lot of those folks are very fucking tapped in. And once they get that drug or alcohol away, there is this very spiritual veil that's right there for them, you know, and whether it's the drug and alcohol that got them there or it numbed it so they could find finally the help to get them to a point to where they can ask or receive it. I don't know. Again, anecdotal. I'm just seeing a lot of crossover between, you know, like what we call substance abuse and spirituality down the road.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that, you know, I was even kind of, as I was driving in this morning, just kind of thinking about, you know, even when I was like a little girl, I was very escapist, right? Like I read a lot, I watched a lot of movies, like I always wanted to be somewhere else. And I remember even like super young, like basically almost journeying, right? Like imagining myself in another place in another time, right? Like trying to get out of the reality that I was living in, right? Because the feelings were intense, like you mentioned. And then also all of the other stuff that was going on at home, right? Like there was this need to want to be, you know, outside of it, right? And so I think that in a lot of ways, drugs and alcohol quieted, you know, the noise a lot and gave me that opportunity, you know, to leave reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And later on in my use, you know, when I was like fucking around with all the psychedelics and stuff and, you know, taking bell ringer crack hits, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a spiritual bitch, right? Like I am connected to something, you know, and now of course in hindsight, I'm like, I probably was. Maybe it wasn't something good, right? But there
Right.
were things that were moving in and out. That's why I think it's so interesting when I do show up in recovery circles now. I'll hear people talk about, like, oh, I did this thing when I was high and it didn't even feel like me, right? And there's this part of me that's like, maybe it wasn't,
Right.
right? Like, so it's a vulnerability, I think, that happens sometimes when we use things addictively. But it can also be, a way to numb out that intuition or that connection that maybe a lot of us inherently already had, like you mentioned.
Welcome, love. If you're feeling the pull to remember your power, soften your body, and return to your truth, I invite you into my world of healing arts and transformational coaching. I'm Awa Wild, intuitive guide, energy medicine woman, and creator of Sensuous Revival Healing Arts. I help individuals and couples release old patterns, dissolve shame, reconnect with pleasure, and rise into a more liberated life. Through sacred pelvic healing, somatic practices, intuitive body talk, and emotional integration, you'll learn to listen to your body, trust your intuition, and create relationships that feel nourishing and aligned. Whether you work with me one-on-one, join a retreat, or step into my online program, you'll receive an experience of deep presence, compassionate guidance, and practices that create lasting change. If your soul is ready for more freedom, more pleasure, and deeper truth, I'm here. Learn more at sensuousrevival.com or reach out directly to begin your journey. I think of the initiation of what it means to be a human being, right? I was just talking to Adam before we started recording about working with a friend of mine with my astrology in a really, really deep way that I've never done before. And she so beautifully pointed out, like, the first house is where our body enters the earth and the realm of earth, and what that really can create on a spiritual level. Yeah. And yes, there's, growing up in our eras that we grew up, like, every era has a thing. And if you didn't grow up going to church, you might have grown up hating the church, or, somewhere you're in between. And if there isn't that system to help support whatever connection you have, feelings you have, interpretations you have, we're all left to our own devices to figure shit out. And even if there is influence, we're still figuring our own shit out. I think what I can relate to is drugs and alcohol supported my ability to dampen the feelings that I had around my circumstances, and often enhanced my ability to stay in tune with what I would consider my spirit. And while that got messy, because, volume and quantity have something to say about that, I don't think that it's I think there's a lot of us right now in the world that are like, yeah, duh, when we're talking about ketamine and even methamphetamines and things like that being used in a medicinal sense. And for me, in my position with where I sit with a lot of those things today, is everything can be beneficial to a certain degree to help us reclaim and reconnect to maybe the spirit or God or divine, whatever you want to refer to it as. And then it's up to us to learn how to do that without said thing. And my experience, and it sounds like maybe with yours too, it's like things got real bad real fast. And it was very clear that these practices needed to stop, or our bodies were going to collapse, or already did. Yeah. And so when you take those, when those things were removed from my life, I was left with the residual of all of those experiences collectively. And there was no denying the fact that it was there long before the drugs and alcohol came in. And so, I know you and Adam have, like, your connection, and you guys have done work together. I know you and I've done a small amount of work together, but I would really love to hear, being that we like to go in deep on the podcast, like, what was it that was happening for you in your life that made drugs and alcohol the thing? And then what was it that made you decide that that wasn't the thing anymore?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, like whenever I speak, I always say that I came from a long line of people that were not enough, right? They believed they were not enough, and that showed up in the drug abuse, the mental illness, the codependency, insert ism here, right? And I think in a lot of ways, even just to touch back on the point we were just making, a lot of people in my family are gifted in their own ways. It's just maybe their own avoidance or holding so much that they didn't know what to do with it, right? And so there was, a lot of chaos and a lot of abuse at a young age. And, um, like I was saying, there was a lot of that escapism and there was a lot of that. I just don't even want to be in my body. I don't even want to, be here right now. And so by the time I was, 11, 12 years old and I got my hands on my mom's liquor cabinet or, a little weed at school or whatever, it was like, that was it. I could breathe again, I could live again, I could be myself, or the version of me that I portrayed to other people easily.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't think I'm like unique when I say I always felt different. I always felt weird, and so drugs and alcohol in a lot of ways were, I can fit in, I can be cool, I can avoid the things that I want to avoid and magnify the things I want to magnify, right? And I'm grateful that, I know, Awa, that you got clean very young as well. And I'm
Ish.
grateful that
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I did too, because I don't know if I would be here if I kept going.
Yeah.
It was very hard and very fast. I like to always say I feel like I smoked crack for a lifetime, but it was really only a couple years, but when you're in that realm, it's like things just happen so fast and blur together. And it was really, I had moved to Florida um when I was 17 to like get my life together because apparently you can do that in Miami, you know.
Ooh.
I was like, that was where you went wrong.
Yeah, you're an N of one if that worked for you.
Right, right. And I moved in with my two older brothers, and both of them were actually my abusers as a child. And so it was, but I had forgotten, right? I
Yeah.
had numbed out what had happened. I didn't actually remember my abuse until I was, I think, 6 months sober. And even when I did start accessing the memories, I didn't believe them.
That's so
Um,
common. I just really,
Very
really, really
common.
want to say how common that is.
Yeah. Yeah, and it took actually a year and a half into my recovery. I made an amends to my high school sweetheart, and somehow in the amends, this abuse got brought up, and he said, "Yeah, that happened."
Mm.
And I said, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "When we were 13 years old, you told me that."
Mm.
And I mean, like, even just now talking about it, I get chills because to have someone be like, no, that happened to you, and
Yeah.
I know that happened to you,
Mm.
was really healing because I think that there was that part of me, like you said, very commonly for a lot of people that was like, am I making this up? Am I telling the story differently than it actually happened? Right. Um, but, again, at the time moving in with them, I had not remembered that. And, they are both addicts of their own variety, right? And so I touch down in Florida, I go out with them. We jump on a trampoline all night and smoke crack. And I was like, I never want to feel any other way than this ever
Mm.
again.
Mm.
Right.
Right.
And so it just everything started to just happen very quickly. I began escorting, selling drugs, and again, stuff just got really bad really quick. And about 2 years later, um, when I was 19, I moved back to Washington State and was living with my mom, who had actually chosen to get sober at that time.
Mm.
And she was like 6 months sober. And so now, of course, upon reflection, I feel terrible about the version of me that came railroading into her life, right?
I'm
Selling
cackling because for anybody who doesn't know this, there's a widespread suggestion, which is really, depending on the group you're in, heavily enforced to make no major changes in your first year of sobriety. So, as a mother, having a child who's a drug addict moving in with you at 6 months sober is really fucking intense. So I'm just cackling over here like, oh my God, my daughter is not a drug addict right now, thankfully. And like we have a rough go and I've been sober almost 17 years. And like I can't imagine what that would be like. So anyway, continue. I'm very intrigued.
So obviously, again, it's like upon reflection, like you were saying, it's like how crazy, right? And it
And
was
how
interesting.
loving.
And how loving, yeah. And, it was interesting because I came home and she was like, I want you to come to this meeting with me. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'm just going to support her on her journey. So I go and it's a young people's meeting and
Mm.
we're in the room and I hear someone calling my name. And I look behind me and it's a girl I used to do dirt with on the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
she has like a year sober or something. And she was like, I'm so glad you're here, right? And I'm thinking inside, like, oh fuck, like I'm loaded right now,
Mm.
right? And I don't want to stop yet. You know what I mean? But when I did eventually get sober, I called her, and she took me to my first couple meetings. Um, but the basically to paint the scene, I'm living in my mom's spare room. She has 6 months clean. I'm selling drugs out of her house. I'm up all night, out all night, the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this goes on for probably about 6 months. And basically, the end of the road, at least for me, was I had run out of money, right? And I had to pay the dope man. And, everybody, I owed everybody money, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we were literally at the end of the road, and it was a Tuesday. And I woke up and he said, if you can pay me X amount, I'll give you more, right? Like they do, because
Mm-hmm.
they're so kind. They're so
Oh yeah,
kind,
totally kind. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
bottom of their heart, you know.
Yeah.
And so naturally, like what one does, right? I collect everything in my mom's house of value. And she's gay, so she doesn't have like a ton of nice jewelry, but she had this like massive watch collection.
Mm.
So I bring all of this to the pawn shop and I'm sitting outside of the pawn shop in the car. Everything's in the back seat. And she calls me and she says, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm just out here getting stuff done because you won't help me, right? And she says, do you know what day it is? And I said, "Oh, it's fucking Tuesday. What do you mean?" And she says, well, it's my birthday. And, of course, it's like 1,000 pounds come down on my
Mm-hmm.
body. And I'm like, fuck, right? And she's like, are we still going to dinner tonight at 6? And I said, yeah, sure. Yep, dinner, 6 o'clock, right? And I just remember in the most sincere desire, right? Truly, the most sincere desire to do the right thing. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
because I hadn't gone inside yet. And so I still went inside and I had never pawned anything before. So I sold all of it, which was horrific because she couldn't get most of it back.
Right.
Mm.
Um, and, obviously I did not end up making it to her birthday dinner and I went on a run for like 4 days. And when I came home finally, she was waiting on the porch for me with a gun. And my mom is like 4'8", so
Mm.
she, you know what I mean? Like she's from Boston and she's a little scrappy, right? But it was like I just remember pulling up and like seeing her on the porch, and I was shook. I was like, uh-oh. And I went up to the porch and she said, either you can come inside and you can change your life, or I'm taking those keys and you can walk wherever you're going to go.
Wow.
Mm.
And honestly, you guys, I'm so grateful she did that, because the codependency and the enabling in our relationship, because we used together for many years.
Yeah.
And to have that moment where it was like she was finally my mom, you know? Like I wasn't parenting her anymore. I wasn't taking care of her anymore, like, because a lot of her use, that's what it looked like, right? And even as a child, I was very much the parentified child, And so it was really, I mean, 19 years old the first time that she was actually my mom.
Yeah.
And I really needed her to do that, And so I went inside, and I think, there was a part of me that was like, okay, I'll just go to rehab, and I'm too young and there's no way, and I could figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what ended up happening.
Hmm.
It's interesting
And
to remember those narratives too, because like going through my own version of my own story of sobriety and all that stuff. Like there is that point where like kind of what you talked about, where like I'm hearing very differentiating opinions in my head, right? I'm feeling like I hear the one that naturally tells me to go fuck off and do whatever the fuck I want. I'm listening to my body, whatever, right? And then I feel more of that intrinsic idea of like, dude, you need to fucking straighten your shit out. Come on, there's definitely something else that you should be doing rather than this. And it was like one of the first times where I like heard that separation of voice of like, fuck, there is a choice. Fuck, there's a choice. It's my fault. Right. Before it was just like, hey, I'm just doing what my friends do. I'm making money. I'm
It's
fucking
normal.
hustling. I'm, paying my bills,
Yeah.
and even up until I quit drinking, way after I quit doing drugs and stuff, my moniker in my head was like, well, I pay my bills, childs are fucking taken care of, I got a house over my head, never starving, I'm climbing a ladder of corporate, blah, 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 right? And we have these mile markers that make us think that we're doing okay until finally it's like, yeah, and your life is still fucking shit, man.
There's
like,
still so much more too. Like that.
100%.
I actually just wrote a post about this. Like I didn't realize how much life I was missing. And we don't have the capacity to even consider that when our lives, like we don't even recognize, for the most part, we don't even recognize how much our life revolves around this habit, this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting when you talked about, the parentified child, I felt that. And then when I look back, honestly, through the lens of, an observer and not from the child's mind, I can see that like my parents weren't asking me to parent them. They weren't directly saying like, do this for me, do that for me. And I know that there are people that legitimately had those parents, right? Like cook for me, clean for me, do the laundry, that kind of thing. It was the emotional burden that I had taken upon myself to try and keep my family well and happy, which is funny because what do I do for a job, right? I try to help people be well and happy in their lives. So then you went to rehab? It sounds like it stuck. You got sober at 19. Is that right? Okay.
yeah. So 3 days into detox, I had a massive spiritual awakening. For the people that have read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it wasn't like the full-on white light, something came down from the sky or anything, right? But I was in the detox center, and it was day 3, so I wasn't feeling very good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some guy came up to me and offered me drugs.
Oh.
And I mean, I was like in Wenatchee at their county, state, whatever. So it wasn't like super regulated or anything. And it was August. It was so hot out there. But of course, I'm like shivering with my fucking blanket, because I'm detoxing. And he offers me some Percocet or something. And literally, inside of my head, what I was thinking is, yes, oh my God, thank God, like someone who knows, right? And the words that came out of my mouth were no. I'm here to get better. Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, who the fuck said that?
Yeah.
Right.
You surprised yourself. You're like, oh, hold the fuck on. That's not what I just thought.
Yeah.
And so after those words came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, maybe that's true. Right. And yeah, I stayed the full 28 days, got out, started doing the recovery thing. And but I don't think that I really wanted to be clean until I was like 2 years clean, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It took a little while because, you know, kind of like I had mentioned earlier, there was a lot of that, well, maybe I could still go out and have fun, maybe I could do it normally, you know, maybe, right, I could figure this all out, I could cheat the system, you know, the story of every addict, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If only in moderation.
Right, totally.
Right,
No, I can
right.
responsibly drink. I can responsibly do meth.
Yeah,
It's all
smoke
good.
crack like a lady.
Fucking hell,
you
come
know,
on,
whatever
pinkies
it
out,
is,
bitch. You know. Well, so I do have a question for you with that, and you know, personal opinion, personal journey for yourself, because I think, you know, I'll get to where I'm getting in a second, but you know, and that comment we made earlier about people in sobriety that have, you know, kind of found some kind of spiritual awakening either before their sobriety, during their sobriety, whatever it is, right? But use drugs and alcohol as kind of like that layer to numb things. A lot of folks, when they find sobriety, it's through a program like AA, which I'm not a practitioner of. I've been to like 2 meetings in my life. Right?
I'm gonna say that now. I'm a
Receive-
practitioner of AA.
but I appreciate it. You know, it's helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I've also understand that their rhetoric around medicines is very, no, you're sober, fucking period, end of story, no intoxicants except alcohol or except cigarettes and fucking caffeine.
And sugar.
Right. Yeah. and I feel like there's a big door that's closed on opportunities for continued therapy for the individual. Now, I understand mass, you know, like as a group, we're going to say sobriety, but so in your personal journey after you got sobriety and working in a spiritual realm, there's a lot of opportunities for medicines. You mentioned ayahuasca earlier. There's hallucinogenic medicines they call entheogens, from, you know, ketamine to psilocybin to even strong cannabis. It could be even an entheogen. You know, there's all these different opportunities that used to be quote unquote drugs back in our days that are now like, I remember when the first time somebody asked me if I ever had a ketamine therapy. And I'm like, I have done Special K many times off the back of toilets in nightclubs. Is this what you call a ketamine therapy? Because I've been in a K-hole before, and it wasn't fucking pretty. And now there's like, oh, there's microdosing, there's macrodosing, there's all these different things, and there's a lot of opinions of nope, sobriety is no, right? And then there's also people that I know that have removed themselves from AA because they want to explore sobriety with the assistance of a medicine of some sort. And again, it's just personal opinion. What's your take on that in your journey in yourself, or the way that you kind of sit with clients?
So I 100% believe in the power of plant medicine. Like, one of the things that I didn't mention about that ayahuasca ceremony that I did was I literally got sober a month later.
Wow.
So it was like I moved home right after that ceremony because I got the call that I needed to, just internally. And then it was like everything happened pretty quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I attribute some of my sobriety to what I experienced in that ceremony that night. And you know, I mean, I grew up in the very rigid version of AA and NA where it was like, you know, I mean, I had a sponsor who was like, I don't even take Tylenol. And I'm like, that's crazy, right? Like, you know, and so I grew up in that kind of era with the recovery stuff. And it was about probably, 6 years in when I received that first energy healing session and started kind of exploring this other stuff, that my mind opened to the idea that there are many different paths to freedom. And it's not my responsibility to tell anyone, first of all, what their relationship with their creator looks like. It's also not my job to tell anyone what their clean date is. That is between them and their creator, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me personally, like, I almost feel like, you know, I probably could have benefited from something in that realm earlier in my recovery, but because I was in such that rigid environment, I didn't explore it. And by the time that I got to the point that I was like, oh, this maybe could be a possibility for me, I didn't feel called,
Mm.
or didn't feel like maybe I necessarily needed it.
Yeah.
I remember with the ceremony that I did do, the shaman shared with me, he said, this medicine is always in your system. And when you need it, you call to her, right?
Yes.
And so there have been many journeys, shamanic journeys, stone cold sober that I have done where I have called grandmother and said, just come sit with me, right? Your energy, come sit with me. And I have had crazier journeys now, again, stone cold sober, than I did when I was on drugs,
Right.
And so again, I think that everybody's path is so different. Just personally for me, I haven't felt the call to do any of that. But nothing's ever off the table, right? Like one thing that I know about myself is that I have a defined third eye in human design, and for people that might not know what that means, it's you can be a little bit stubborn because you make your mind up about something, and you're like, okay, this is the truth, right? And because I know that about myself, I have to remember that everything is always subject to change.
Right.
Right. And so even though today I don't feel like personally I need that kind of medicine, it doesn't mean that I won't in the future.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm a huge, supporter of it. My partner microdoses, and that's been something that's been amazing for him. He's been off his medication for bipolar for years, and has healed a lot. With clients of mine who do take part in it, I'm very supportive, people who are in recovery or not. Um, but I think that also on like the full opposite of the spectrum, I have had a few clients that maybe, in my opinion, have overused
Hmm.
Yeah.
that experience, where it's like, okay, Aya ceremony one week, Cambo the next,
Or in
Aya,
the same weekend.
Cambo. Right, right.
Yeah.
And then also, Hoppe and this and that every day. And I'm kind of like, okay, your body just wants to like what's coming through for me is like your body just wants to be grounded in reality for a second and like nourished, right? And
Right.
held. And so I think that like anything, right? Like we can go to the opposite ends of the spectrum with all of this stuff.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, but I've always had a very, very, very open mind about it.
Yeah. I love the way you broke that down and spoke to it. I think the individual and how these practices can give us an opportunity to teach us how to listen to ourselves. But
Yeah.
if we still give all of our power to the practice, then it's just another addiction of sorts, right? And we're still not, and it might take some time to learn how we can do it for ourselves. And that's why there's great communities and these programs. But one of the things you spoke to kind of, roundaboutly was your narrative and your perspective on whatever it is you're doing. And the reason I want to bring that up and kind of circle back on the plant medicine thing is because, I've got so many conversations with people that are in AA or that are sober that will, chide medicine usage as just another form, medicine's not in medicine, it's a fucking drug. And I'm like, hey, right, hey, that's perspective, right? And the reason, like, I just love the conversations and with especially folks that are so just hard nosed into, no, this is the fucking way. It's gotta be okay, cool. Sobriety's great, right? Realize that Bill W. back in the 50s when he was developing AA, his first step was take a face full of acid. And then we made acid illegal. But his very first step when he developed the program, there was 13 steps. Step 1 was take a face full of acid, see God for yourself, understand that you deserve to be here as a human being in your form, and then we do the 12 steps from there. But you got to realize that you want to be here first. And he found the best way to do that was this new drug called LSD. And then it was demonized by Tim Leary and, or I should say it was aggrandized by Tim Leary
I was
and
like,
Rob
wait,
Doss.
Tim Leary didn't
And,
demonize.
everybody take acid, fucking tune in, tune out, and shut up, whatever the fuck his quiz quote was. But, and then he had to take it away, right? And so, the people that are so vehement against medicine usage don't even realize that was step 1 in Bill's fucking sobriety journey, right? And so it's a perspective, it's narrative, right? And to your point, like I have had a lot of benefits for myself and entheogens and psilocybin in particular, and knew when I needed to stop and take a break, and so it's all about that, defining the balance for yourself. But
Yeah.
so as you moved into like your journey, you're getting sober, you've had your bowel excavating, fucking evacuating experiences. What when did you decide that you wanted to start kind of moving into healing practices yourself? How did you kind of get to that understanding that that was something you wanted to do?
So after that first session, because I was a healthy skeptic, I think, like I didn't necessarily know if I believed in energy work.
Until you
And
got
I
the
just,
diarrhea.
yeah, well, because she said you might get diarrhea, and then later that day, best believe I'm on the toilet, and I'm like, okay, this shit is real,
Yeah.
right? And I kept seeing her and it really, really helped me a lot. And, it was somewhere along the journey, I was kind of like, maybe I might like to do this, right? And she was like, I think you'd like to do this, and we kind of just agreed on that. And there was never a plan to have a business. There was never a plan to really go anywhere specific with it. I just knew that I needed to do Reiki training, and so I did that. And, I've always been a little bit of a creator or like a let me make it myself type of gal. When I was little, I used to make clothes out of newspapers. I just always loved creating, right? And so, I was starting to do my first couple practice sessions, and I would make my clients little candles and, little gifts, right, to send them home with. And then I was still bartending at the time, and I was going down the staircase at work and with a big thing of wine in my hands, and I fell,
Hmm.
and I bruised my tailbone really bad, like almost to the point of breaking it. And of course, I go to the doctor and they want to give me, pain medication. And at the time, I was still kind of like, okay, I don't really know if I need that, but I want something. And before I got clean too, I worked in the medical dispensaries for a period of time, and so I used to always make, um, edibles and little things like that for the dispensary. And so I had gone to a weed store, and I remember I made my husband at the time come with me because I was scared,
Hmm.
and I was looking for something that had zero THC, and they didn't have anything. And so I started doing some research and was like, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna make it myself. And so I had ordered some CBD, CBG isolate, and had started infusing some products for myself. And then, of course, the people in my life were like, oh, let me see that stick you got there and put it on them. And they're like, oh, it works pretty well, right? And so that began the Awaken Yourself CBD brand, which was how my business started,
Hmm.
was the Reiki infused CBD products that had zero THC, which was very good for all of the people, at least in my community at that time, because drug addicts who wanted that natural anti-anxiety, anti-pain relief, things like that, but they wanted to be able to do it safely, right, in a way that felt good for them. And so that was the beginning, and it took off. I mean, like I always joke that the universe laid out the red carpet, and it was like my spirit was being pulled and my body's like running behind it trying to catch up, right? It
Hmm.
was just it happened really fast. And so yesterday actually was the 7-year anniversary of the beginning of Awaken
Damn.
Yourself.
Hmm.
And it was a little bit longer before I decided to, go legit and file the paperwork and, quit my job and do those things. But it happened very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because the intention for the beginning of all of it wasn't really for that, but it just happened that way.
Yeah. I love that because It feels really relevant to kind of my own story and my own experience that everything that now comes through me started for me, right? Like, and also like the times in my life that I've gone into a weed store with someone and been like, come with me. I don't know what to do. Now I'm totally fine and comfortable. But at first, well, first of all, like weed stores were only I remember when the voting was happening and the rooms of AA were split
Oh,
hard.
interesting.
It
Yep.
was, I remember in the business meetings going and hearing some of the elders talking about it. And then, we do live in a pretty, lushy liberal kind of place for that concept, even in the AA rooms. And so I was really grateful that most of the people that I was around, I was all for it. And then I had people on the other side that had been using it medicinally for a long time and they got fucked. Like everything
Mm.
changed for them and it was not pleasant. And so it was kind of like it's kind of like you ever watch The Good Place?
Oh yeah, Ted Danson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's like you're trying so hard to do something good and you can't see what's all behind it, right? So like anyway,
I think there's a quote that says, "Behind the mess is where the testament lies."
yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's like you buy an organic tomato, but you don't actually know about all the farmers that have been abused to get that tomato in your cart
100%.
today.
Jesus Christ.
And so,
Right.
anyway, but it's like, and actually, I'm curious, what is your human design?
So I'm a generator. I'm 5'1". I
Shut the
think me and
fuck
you are
up.
very similar.
We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
I
we
also
talked
have
about
the
it.
defined third eye. So when you said that, I
Okay.
was like, girl, I is stubborn. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. That makes so much more sense. I think I do now remember us having that conversation, but I related so much to what you said. It's like your feet are walking the path of your soul and your body's just kind of along for the ride sometimes.
Yep.
And, now I'm like, I want to check out your CBD shit because I still have some body aches. I am not a purist where I won't take Tylenol or ibuprofen, but like I first will do my LED light, I'll do energy healing, I'll do a bath, I'll try all these things. And then if I got to go get groceries, like I'm taking some ibuprofen. But
Fuck yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
having the ritual tested and true through your own system to the degree where other people are like, I want that, right? Like that is the universe inviting you to continue to follow in that direction. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, timeline wise, you said 7 years was when you had started that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at what point? So, did you do your Reiki training with the woman that you had been getting services with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did my Reiki training with her. I started my CBD company. And I mean, same point that we were just making. I did a market. Some girl came up to me. She said, "Oh, you're a Reiki master. Do you teach?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, I like you. So I'm going to take your card and I'm just going to keep emailing you until you say yes."
I love
And
that.
she was actually my first assistant.
Mm.
And she works in the store now too on Thursdays with her own business, her own healing business,
Amazing.
which is amazing. But so she did. She emailed me for about 6 months, and then finally I got over myself and I said, "Okay, I'll teach you this Reiki class." And so that was kind of the beginning. And then COVID happened,
Mm.
and I had just quit my job. And I was thinking, oh, fuck, right? I just started this business. I don't even know what's going to happen. And now the world shut down.
Hmm.
And in so many ways, it actually ended up being a blessing because a lot of people were on their phone. A lot of people were looking for healing. A lot of people were being faced with themselves for the very first time. And I mean, I was getting a ton of people that wanted to do healings, that wanted to buy products. People were very supportive. Um, and, interestingly enough, during that time, like right before the shutdown, um, I had done a session on a client. And, when I was doing Reiki sessions, traditional Usui Reiki, they don't really talk to you about spirits and ascended masters and guides. Like there's not a lot of that talk. Like for those of you that have done holy fire, there's a lot more of that. But with just traditional Usui training, there's not much of that. And so, I had started to sense, when I was working on people, there was more that was happening in the room. And I remember I did this session with this woman, and I could feel her father in the room, and he had committed suicide a couple weeks prior,
Mm.
and I could feel his energy. And I just felt really icky after the session. And I went home and I woke up the next day and I felt suicidal. And with all of the stuff that I have dealt with mental health and addiction wise, that's never been the thing for me.
Mm.
And so I knew something was going on. And so of course I'm on Google shaman near me, like trying to find help, right? And that is how I met my shamanic mentor. Was I went and got a depossession from her.
Mm.
And I remember, kind of thinking like, oh, well, what did I do wrong? How did this happen? But again, there wasn't a lot of training around that sort of stuff in my Reiki training.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was kind of just like, call in the channel of light, ask for the protection, but I didn't really know yet the magnitude of what this work could be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got that clearing, and I just loved her so much. I was like, you're so cool, whatever, and so that's when I kind of started thinking about taking that training with her. And so it was 2020, the world was shut down. I was doing a lot of healing. I was making lots of CBD, and I was in training to become a shamanic practitioner. So it was a lot happened that year.
Yeah,
That
no
was
shit.
also a year I got married. I married my ex-husband in 2020. So it was like, it was big, big, big movement. And actually now, upon reflection, I've learned that that year was the beginning of my Saturn return, because I had a very early one.
Mm.
Mine ended when I was 29 and started when I was 25.
Mm.
And so
And for I will say for our listeners, but also for myself, what does that actually mean? What does Saturn return mean? I
so
love astrology. Aya and I were talking about this earlier. I love the idea of it. It goes way over my head. I have no idea what the houses and the Saturns and the Mercury and the microwave and all that
Conjunctions and
shit,
the
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So what does Saturn return mean in that narrative?
So maybe Awa can speak on this too, but from my understanding, all of the planets go back to the same place that they were the day you were born. So it's almost kind of like an astrological reset,
Hmm.
but it's a longer period of time. So there's like a building time, and then there's also high points of it. And depending on your chart too, Saturn can be in your chart around that same time as well and cause extra havoc, which is what happened to me
Hmm.
in my high point. So I don't know,
Right.
maybe Awa has a more sophisticated explanation of it.
No, it's funny. I was like, well, let me pull it up, right? Because, well, first off, I want to say there's so many different ways of being able to refer
Right.
to this.
Yeah.
And I just had a really deep reading. That was Adam and I were just talking about this right before we hopped on to record. There's pop astrology, which is what most
Right.
people refer to, and it's more fixed.
Like
It's
horoscopal kind of stuff.
Like the
And
full house.
yeah, it's a
Gotcha.
full
Full house
house, right?
system. Yep.
Yeah.
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 So, and then I just had it's going to be a third part to it because because her and I like to go real deep. And she was like, this always happens when I'm working with people that are wanting and willing to go really deep. So she first read my Tong Shu
Okay.
astrological report, which is something I've never really gotten into. And it definitely deals with the Chinese side of the elements, the yin and the yang, as well as the animals. And there was more to it. And then there's the tropical, I'll just call it tropical. Anyway, and so that goes into the degrees and not just the houses. It's like, what degree is this in what house, and how does that interact with the other planets and signs that it's in? And it is way more complicated. My surface understanding is the Saturn return for most people is when a lot of fucking epic shit happens in your life and you have the opportunity to learn so much
Okay.
or to not.
Or to just dive deeper into the story that you're living.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's
okay.
and I think for most people that I've heard them talk about it, it's usually between 27 to 31, which
God,
I
that
could
fucking tracks.
I can totally blow
100%.
smoke in that regard.
Honestly, though, but you saying that age range, I mean, my personal journey started in around that age range, but also a lot of the folks that have that I've worked with in whatever realms, that late 20s to mid early 30s is usually when it's just like, this isn't right anymore. It was, but it's not anymore. And I don't know what's different, but I'm doing all the same things and I'm just not fucking happy. And now I know it and it sucks.
Oh, good. I just looked on Claude. I was like, let me pull it up because being a one line in my human design, I want to make sure that I'm reporting accurately. So it says Saturn return is an astrological concept referring to the time when the planet Saturn moves back to the same zodiac position it was when you were born. Since Saturn takes about 29 to 30 years to orbit the sun, this happens roughly every 29 to 30 years. Most people experience their first around 27 to 30 and a second around 58 to 60. And if you live long enough, a third around 87 and 90.
Okay.
And so it says major life transitions, a quote unquote growing up moment, career, relationship, or identity shifts, a sense of reckoning. Yes, I'll snap to that.
Mm-hmm.
And increased responsibility, structure, or maturity.
Okay.
And ultimately for me, I feel like this is when people actually become adults.
Yeah.
Like we say 18 because somebody decided that we needed more young men to join the military. And so that was like the time that we said people were adults, which is absolutely ludicrous.
Yep.
And then brain development really is like mid-20s. But
actually, I just read a study about that. The prefrontal cortex thought to be developed by 25. That's why we have insurance that lessens at 25 and rental cars that can happen. 32,
right?
32 now.
Yeah,
Their prefrontal cortex isn't developed till 32. And then it's earlier for women, later for men.
Yeah.
Which makes fucking sense. Yeah. I think my teenagers had prefrontal cortexes before I had them. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. Which, when you think about it, also on a cellular level, our systems circulate and completely turn over every 7 years. So at 28, we're also changing on a biological level. So it's such a huge time to have an opportunity to reflect. And I do want to speak on that. I won't out anybody, but someone in my life really, really struggles with making mistakes and the weight of the guilt and the shame for quote unquote not knowing better or doing better, right? Also comes from a long line of like the not good enough belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is where like I know that this is taught in a lot of like healing and recovery and even in AA spaces of being able to like look back and find gratitude for the life that you lived. I am so grateful that I was so fucking feral as a child that whatever conditioning and influence could have been from the people shaming me around for my mistakes were absent. Like I made so many mistakes growing up. And I will say it is part of my nature and my chart and all of that thing. Like I am here to make the mistakes and to learn from them and to teach what I've learned from them. And it's one of my greatest joys to be able to laugh at myself. Mostly. There are certain points, like if we're fighting and then I do something stupid and you laugh at me, I'm not going to laugh.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you're going to become the thing that my laser beams are now fully focused on. But for the most part, like I enjoy the fumbling because it gives me so much juice to squeeze out of like this opportunity to learn. And that's what I hear in your experience is like, even when you went to treatment, you were like, I'm not probably going to get sober, but why not try it out, And then, here you are all these years later. I just I've loved watching, at it from a distance. We started to get closer when I was still up north, and I was really stoked about having somebody that I also felt was what my brain just said, like radical riffraff.
Love
like
that.
somebody that I felt like I could relate to
Mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm.
in the healing world, because I would say, what was the something you said, something punk? What are we?
Oh
What's
yeah, is she? So I I love people. I love hearing about people before I meet them, and I love hearing about the way people tell me about people.
right?
And when I started hearing about Allie, because I've known Ashley Wishart, which is a mutual friend of ours, for a number of years, right? And I don't even think
Shout
it
out,
was
Ashley.
yeah, I don't even think it was Ashley that told me about you first. But what really intrigued me was the way that I was being that you were being talked about. And it was like, you have this kind of like punk rock approach to fucking spiritual healing. I think you're the only person I've ever known that has broken a Tibetan bowl. I've known many people that have broken crystal bowls. I've broken many
Wait,
myself.
my brain went, wait, what? Like I heard
It
broke
happened
a
in
bowl.
transit. Okay, it happened in transit. It was not me.
But yeah, I love I love being in your space. I love doing events there. I love being welcomed by your amazing front desk folks. The people that work the crystal shop. But there's just such a just interesting vibe about your place, and you as a person. I mean, we're all
Yeah.
very individual. But I remember I was so excited to meet you, and when I did, I'm like, I'm still so excited. You're fucking awesome. Right. And I think a lot of it is because like, there is a reverence that you have for what you do, but there's also a just very unique approach that you have, but also
Yeah.
paying homage to where you learned it from.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much like, and I get it. Like, I'm a fucking white cis man. I've got fucking colonial written all over my fucking ass, right? Patriarchy, all this fucking,
And you're human.
right. And there's no reason why I should be chanting Hindu chants and a lot of the stuff. You're right.
Or
I
every reason.
try to do the best I can to honor the things that I do. I don't know why I'm there, but I do my best, right? There's still, I think more conversative talk about appropriation than actual, blatant appropriation, at least in the realms that I'm in. But it's still like that very good focus to say, hey, let me double check and let me check in with myself to make sure I'm appreciating this culture as much as I can. And you just have like this amalgamation of all this stuff that that you work with, that you choose from. And again, like the reverence that I feel that you show for it is so beautiful. So like, how did you get to that point? And two, like, do you ever feel that you have to explain yourself? And not to say that you should, but there are some people in this world that are like, that's not how it's done. Well, please show me the 4,000-year-old manual that predates our understanding of anything that shows you how the fuck it was done. And don't give me the fucking Bible, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I love those type of conversations because it
Or
really
do,
starts
but
to
read it
unpack.
right.
Right.
Sorry.
Getting to a place to where we all understand we're just making shit up the best way we can. Right. So
Right.
like, yeah. So how did you get to like that combination of your beautiful practices, the confidence that you have as you do it? And we'll get to spiritual hygiene in a minute, but all this does like start to come together. How do you clean yourself afterwards? Spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, all that shit.
So, I'm really grateful for the mentor that I chose. And I mean, again, she was just given to me by the universe, because she was so empowering and so like, you already know how to do this because your soul's already done it, however many fucking times before, right? And she's like, so I'm going to empower you to trust yourself and to learn how to do it safely. Right. And so I know that there are a lot of other lineages of shamanic practice specifically, right, that have different rules and have different regulations as far as time frames. And I respect all of that, right? It just wasn't the way I was taught. Right.
Mm-hmm.
She said, all right, you're going to journey to this guide and you're going to ask them how to do a soul retrieval. And in 3 hours, my daughter's going to show up and you're going to work on her. Right. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? Right. And And I'm so grateful for that because, again, it was like she was teaching me how to do things safely, but she was also empowering me in the way of like, you know how to do this,
Mm.
Yeah.
right? And so with that kind of foundation, I didn't really even know that there was, this wide variety of other ways to do it,
Mm.
right? Until I did later, right? And so I started practicing and it was slow, during COVID and all the things. And, just kind of a side note about how the crystals came into the scene is, COVID, PPP loan,
Yeah.
the government was like, we'll give you this money, but you can't spend it on anything with CBD because it wasn't federally legal yet. Um, and so I went to a rock show and I bought some crystals because I already knew all the people that wanted to buy them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, again, this was all happening very quickly, all at the same time. And, during the shutdown, I did these really cool live Zoom ceremonies for people. And I was just kind of getting my footing and learning about how this was all going to relate to the work that I was going to end up doing. But at this point, I'm 26, right? And 26, 27. And I remember when people started kind of hearing about me and learning about me, they would book a session and they would show up and they almost seemed like shocked that I was the shaman that they had heard about,
Yeah.
right? They're like, thinking it's going to be some like old lady in a muumuu, right? And
Right.
it's me
Yeah.
me
Big
pulling
brim
up
hat.
with my truck with my platform vans and my neck tattoos and right, and of course we do the session and they would have the experience, right. But I mean, man, if I could just show you how many times, like if I could have a screenshot of just people's faces, right, when they're like, oh, you're the owner of this shop, or oh, you're the shaman everyone was telling me about, right. And
Yeah.
I think that like I had gotten this message very early on of just you are going to do it differently than other people, and that's going to be okay because you're leading the way for all of these other people that are going to need to see that, right?
Yes.
That, young people can be powerful, right?
Hmm.
That you don't always have to follow the path that everybody else does, right? And or look the way,
Right.
right? That everybody else in this realm might, right? And I mean, again, this is like still 6-ish years ago, right? Like shamanic practitioners still weren't like super like popular or mainstream yet. Reiki really wasn't even either then too.
Hmm.
And then, just kind of continuing to walk the path. And I think that for a long time, the shamanic work, what really called to me was a lot of the earth-based wisdom, right? Like,
Yep.
I like to travel a lot to my lower realms where there's the animals and the guides that look like humans and, like the things that my brain could understand and make sense of. Because, like I was telling you guys, even though I've seen a lot of shit, I can still tend to be a skeptic, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, every experience that I went through, either with a client or in my own, journeys or whatever, was bringing me closer and closer to understanding that, like, first of all, this shit is real as fuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also that there is a way to do it safely, make it your own, and still have respect to the lineages that we draw from,
Mm.
Totally.
right? And so the form of shamanic practice that I was taught was more non-denominational in a lot of ways. Some of the ceremonial work, like sacred pipe, is Lakota lineage, right? And obviously there are things that are closed practices that you don't charge money for. There's a lot of different things that, I learned within that process of how to be respectful, how to, honor the ancestors and the lineages around me while also being myself, right? Because again, I truly believe that people are drawn to things that are real.
Mm.
And so if I'm trying to put on a show for the world or for my clients, that's not going to bring me the people that are actually meant to be on my table or in my life or in my store or at my events, right? And so I never really had the like let me like try to be the healer era, right? Like I
Right.
was always just Allie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that has tended to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And that has been a part of the journey too, and learning that because especially a lot of my astrological placements having a lot of Aquarius energy and a lot of Aries energy, it's the weirdo, the pioneer, the fucking warrior, right? The one that has to lead the way. And sometimes it doesn't always feel great,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
even something that just popped into my head is I remember doing a metaphysical fair like super early on. And I remember like I took my rattle out in the morning to clear my table, right? And all of the other women in the metaphysical fair are like looking at me like I'm crazy,
Mm-mm.
right? And like, just kind of like the little judgments, right? Where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
can't we all just be on our own fucking path? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so, and again, that's not to condone like unsafe practice, right? Making people uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
or taking on things that maybe we haven't been trained how to do, right?
Yes. Snap, snap.
Um, because, I've also had, now that I teach shamanic practitioners, I have had students that have done things before they knew how to do them.
Mm-hmm.
We've had things that have been learning experiences for everybody, but, kind of like what Awa was touching on earlier, it's like, we sometimes have to make those mistakes to actually step into that next level of who we are supposed to be as, a human, a practitioner, a shaman, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
Yeah.
part of the journey.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of the journey to find that zealousness of being like, no, I got this. Yeah, totally. Throw me in, coach. And then you do, and you're like, ah, fuck, that went sideways.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's unpack that. Right. Let's figure out how to do better next time. Right. And I
Yeah.
think and it's hard to say it's a mistake because it's just part of that journey. Like you got to learn it somehow, and it's fortunate to have, the communities that are around us in whatever ways. There's a hierarchical community where there's like a person, the teacher or something you look to for answers. Sometimes it's like horizontal management where everybody's got to say in everything. We're all just trying to kind of get something from each buddy, and trying to support each other. And all of those communities are beautiful, right? As long as there's not like that guru mentality of like, come to me and bow to me for the knowledge. It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I see what. Hey, good try, buddy. Here, let's try this out. Try this book, take this training. Let's do this better next time, right?
Well, and I like the healthy skepticism too that Allie's been talking
Mm-hmm.
about because I don't know if I've mentioned it in our podcast before, but part of my journey has been learning that just because someone's at the front of the room doesn't mean they know more than me. And
Mm.
to
Yes.
like feel like you can ask questions and I've definitely been the annoying student in the classroom because I love to learn. And so like if everything goes quiet and I have like my 18 questions on my paper and like nobody's saying anything, I'm gonna ask a question. And so then, halfway through class, the teacher will look at me while making an announcement to everyone that's like, okay, let's see if anybody else has any questions in the room. And I'm like, hey man, squeaky wheel gets the grease. But it's to understand to the point that Ali was making, like we do make mistakes and we may think that we are equipped to deal with said scenarios. And I do think that there are some people, whether you're trained or not, still are innately gifted with the ability to see a shadow and sit with a shadow and unpack a shadow and deal with whatever storm can come from that person's experience and not take it on, not bring it home with you, right? So, like, there's some people that I think are innately gifted and they may not know that until they're given an opportunity to practice. And that's what I heard your training, your shaman that trained you, like they trusted that you were going to be able to cope with what practices that you were going to be working through. And I'm assuming she was nearby, right? So if like something was really complicated or you felt like you were overwhelmed, which is kind of a funny idea to consider as a generator 5-1, like
I'm literally right.
like we're like, bring it on.
Yep.
And also like bring it on gently. That's where I'm at in life now. Um, so I do want to hear more about like the energetic hygiene that was noted for us to chat about today. One, because I'm curious, but also like I have had experiences now over the last couple of years, not when I'm working with clients, but in my own personal experience where I'm like, what is this? And actually, even after working on my grandfather shortly before he passed,
Mm.
as much as I tried to do as much clearing as I could, I know for a lot of different reasons, one being a lot of doo doo, my body purged hard,
Yeah.
but also just what started to come through me on a really clear psychic level about him and about life and things like that. And so like I'm really curious what sparked you to focus on energetic hygiene and like where did you go with it?
So I think that it's an interesting thing. Like for me, what I know about myself is that a lot of the time I can't take my own medicine and or I can't always be the healer for
Ye-
myself,
yes.
right? And so, I'm grateful. I think that, like, even just to go back for a second, like, when I first started doing this, like, I would have loved to have a community like we have at Awaken Yourself, to have people that all kind of have their intuitive specialty, like you were, touching on, right? Like, when I teach practitioners, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to do everything, and then there's probably going to be a few things that you feel really drawn to,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of how it's shaken out here at Awaken Yourself is, on any given week or whatever, we might have 10, 15 practitioners who move in and out of this space. Maybe they're not all trained by me, right? But they all have their thing, right? And so I think that that's been, as far as energetic health for me, like if I'm dealing with something specifically, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, oh, I can call that person or I can call this person or, this is this person's like specialty or what they work through, right? And that's not to say that I need to be on a table, every week to keep myself clear. I think a lot of it is, integrating back into being this human being and having fun and enjoying my life and, living in the material world, right? Because that's just part of it, while also taking those times to clear what's needing to be cleared or take a deeper look at what's needing to be looked at, right? And I think that for me, because, for better or for worse, a lot of the time what I specialize in or what clients come to see me for is darker things,
Mm-hmm.
entities, curses, stuff that isn't super comfortable for a lot of healers to work with. And that for me means that I need to be, doing things a little bit more to keep myself safe and protected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it that varies, right, on what that looks like on any given day. I mean, a lot of it is relying on my, team of ascended masters, my guides. A lot of it is making sure to always clear myself before and after my sessions and be really intentional because kind of like what I shared with you guys earlier, that story about accidentally getting possessed, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that to happen to me again, right? And I also know that in that Reiki session that I did, even though I didn't have a ton of awareness on even how to clear myself or keep myself safe, there were little rituals that I normally did and I didn't do them that day,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it sometimes can really be the difference in setting intentions, cleansing yourself in whatever way you like to do that. So like for me, I'm like a double cleansing bitch. So like I
Mm-hmm.
cleanse with smoke. But I take a shower twice a day. Like I take a shower in the morning and like now when I get home, my fiance already knows. Like he won't even try to talk to me until I go upstairs, take a shower, change my clothes, and then come back down because water is a really cleansing thing for me too.
Yeah.
And so little things like that. I mean, as far as like the question of energetic hygiene, were you thinking more like of that, just kind of how do you keep yourself safe and
Most definitely.
clear type
Yeah.
of idea? Okay.
Yeah, just with all the different practices you have, and you're a business owner, you're a practitioner, so you're seeing clients that are coming to see you, and then you have people that are just passing through the store, right? And so
Yeah.
like you said, like when I'm getting ready for clients, and like for my example, I know, right, clear before, clear after, right? For whatever reason, I didn't recognize that I needed to do that with sound healing too. It was
Mm.
like, oh, this is an event, it's different, and it just didn't put it together to me. It's like, the joke I make is like, I'm up there stirring soup for 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just stirring soup, making things go jingle, jingle, right? And then that first like after the first 2 or 3 sound bites I had, I was destroyed. I was like
Yeah.
just a puddle of mess, and I remembered, oh, that's right. This is what I felt like after my first like Reiki session, giving,
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, okay, cool. I'm a big fly trap, more or less. Things are just getting stuck to me, and so it's
Yeah.
like, how do I cleanse this? How do I make sure that I set this up going into it? How do I get myself right coming out of it? Make space for whatever needs to happen in between. But it's like, it's those things you don't know until you know, right? And
Right.
some of us have, like, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and I'm good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also, a lot of the folks that have a step process is also like, I have a step process to get into the state of mind that I have to be in. And I get that too. And what I've noticed with myself, and I mean, we've done a lot of trade work, Allie, you and I, and I just adore and I love, and I get so much out of your sessions. Like I love, there's not a lot of people that I wouldn't say that I would trust working on me, but that I just know that I have the capacities. And you're one of those people. And I love you so much for that. And
Thank
there's a responsibility that I feel every time, but there's also like I've got, and I don't want this to sound like egotistical towards you, but like, it's like that mentality of like, put me in, coach, I got this, right? I've done this. I know what I'm doing. I know how to get in there. Yes, I could sit and call in the things, and I'm also right here ready to go.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And there's something special about both, right? About the ritual to get into the place, but also the knowledge of self and the confidence in your own abilities. Imposter syndrome be damned, to just be like, hey, guess what? That person's father just died. I don't have time to call in the thing and blah, 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 bibbity bobbity boop. I'm just going to go over there and fucking hold space for that person. Right. And I'm going to sit there with that person in the shit. I'm going to do the best I can to show up as a human being, as whatever that person needs. And I'll figure it out on the back end. But like, and I think there's something there's a quiet confidence with that part too. But I think it's because you have that spiritual practice, you have that spiritual hygiene, you have that reverence for what you do, that you're able to just be like, got it, hat, boom, boom. Like, give me a gong, give me a fucking bowl, throw on that fucking spiritual cowboy hat and put me in, right? And so I think there's a respect that once we understand and keep checking in with ourselves about what that respect means for us, that we can really do a lot of magical shit.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think for a long time, there's like these things in like the path that I now carry into my practices that I once poo-pooed. I used to poo-poo energetic hygiene. I was like, what? Because I'm not a person that has to do A, B, and C to tap in, tune in.
Right.
Like it's happening all the time. And what I've come to respect through pain initially is the value of me taking conscious time to focus in on the preparation and on the closure and on the detachment, but also just recognizing like spirit and that space is not something I'm touching, but my body is. And so whatever is moving around in this space, I love the whole like fly trap. It's like that I actually almost got my hair stuck in one of those like tapes not long ago.
Totally, yeah.
And I was like, whoa! Like,
with flies on it still.
yeah, it's so gross. I'm like, God, these things are awful. And just like, oh, like my aching heart for like all living beings. Can you imagine being a fly and accidentally running into one of those? Like, well,
Look at that right over here. I've got like fly traps in all these plants. They're all like dead or dying flies just stuck to a yellow piece of tape. I'm like, God, I feel so bad for you, but also don't eat my plants anymore.
yeah, I have one of those. I have one of those tennis racket electrocutor
Electric ones,
lighter
yeah.
thingies. And what's crazy is that my animals, I actually should put it near my plants more because they're all slightly terrified of it because of the sound that it makes when it actually kills a bug. But they're still, I use tinfoil to try to distract my cats from my plants. But anyway, they're chewing on them right now and it's making me very angry. But it was only, in the last couple of years that I started to recognize I, in this body, need to prioritize my cleansing ritual. Like, I just needed to. Maybe when I was younger, I could carry more things around and not notice. And so now it's part of like my self-love ritual. And I do it in the session with my client because I want them to also understand we are both stepping into this space. We are both cleansing. This is happening so that we can be fully present. And the closing is also to disconnect from any transference, right? I don't know, like depending on the kind of work that's happening. And I know Adam and I've talked about this, like him being a grounded man in a yoga studio, like women come in and they're like, who are you? Who are you with this deep voice who's going to tell me how to move my body? And he hates it. He hates the attention. But it's like there's so much love that's being channeled in that space. And so I want to be really clear with people, like, it is not me in this body. I am doing my work. And sometimes, my ego is still going to get in and be part of the conversation. I don't believe that's something that ever can actually be separated, and I don't shit on it. I think it's a beautiful thing. It tells me I love the color green. And I love comfy pants that don't cinch my waist. So, but it's this this way that I have shifted in the way that I relate to myself that I also think is really beneficial for people to understand and learn and be part of the session. And so, anyway, I love seeing what's happening. And when my life starts to smooth out a little bit, I would love to come up there and connect more. I'm, much further south since I moved back to the city. But it's, for me, I think, you were talking about, getting out of your truck with your platform vans and having neck tattoos. I think the beauty in that is it's how, from my perspective, and maybe people will take it on as they're maybe listening, is like, stop your judgments. Like, can we all just stop our judgments? Because getting clean, getting sober, stepping into working with the light and the shadow and holding space doesn't mean that you have to be an old woman in a muumuu or a man with beads, right? Like, you get to have the look that you want, and you get to listen to the music that you want and wear what you want and identify however you want. And I love that you have spoken so openly to, my favorite theme of like, you do you, boo-boo. It's like, do whatever it is that you want to do and let me do whatever it is that I want to do. And we can all live in peace and harmony.
Fucking amen to that.
But I don't have to dress like you, talk like you, hold space like you. And if we're out of alignment, we're going to know. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we will know. And so, I'm just so grateful. I was thinking, like, as I was talking about like the radical riffraff, I was like, oh my God, we should do something together called like Punk and Hood.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I mean, the ex crackhead that used to listen to R&B. I'm a little hood too, girl. So
I know.
Wait, ex crackhead, but not ex R&B listener, right?
No.
Right.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure because hey, R&B still has a place, right?
R&B does, but we are all
Always.
ex R. Kelly. Nobody's listening to R. Kelly anymore.
Well, actually, okay, I have one thing to say about that because this is actually really interesting because I've never heard this before. This is almost like a sitcom fucking like judge, sentencing. It's like, you know, two people that want to get a divorce, but then one has to be their servant for a year. You know, it's like kind of shit like that. So R. Kelly, the fucking horrible fucking degenerate that he is, that he got fucking peed on people and shit, whatever.
Wounded. Yep.
Yeah, wounded, but made great fucking R&B music. The remix to Ignition still goes rent free in my head constantly on a daily basis. It's just a fucking jam of a song, right? So all of R. Kelly's victims that came forward and had a case against him or had some kind of lawsuit against him, all the royalties that R. Kelly would get from his music goes to all of his victims. So if you want to listen to Remix to Ignition, listen to it till your heart's content, because all the people he fucked over are getting all of those 30 cents per listen from Spotify. Right. And so like, hey, he's kind of a shitty human being, but my man made some good fucking music, you know. Some would say similar about Michael Jackson. I'm not going to go into that right now, but like, hey, you know. So, but with R. Kelly, the money doesn't go to him; it goes to his victims, which I fucking I appreciate that.
Which I think should be more of a public announcement, because I think there are a lot of people out there that would enjoy knowing that the music is supporting them.
They don't want to remember the In the Closet version of R. Kelly, because those were terrible fucking songs. There's 26 versions of that fucking song. I want a remix to Ignition. I want fucking grinding and shit, bump and grind and shit, you know? Like, that's the R. Kelly that I want.
I mean, those are the soundtracks of our entire youth and growing up into being like intimate beings. And as gross as some of them may be, that's my biggest challenge now, as like being in this space of healing and wholeheartedness and like one with the earth. I listen to a lot of the songs and it's like, ew, you know. And I've seen like a lot of those memes now with like, it'll have like Gen X or a millennial parent and the kids are like, my music's so bad, and then like we throw on one of our old songs and the kid's face is like, oh my god. It's like, yeah. and like I've reframed a lot of my music. It's like, if I'm singing this love song, or if this love song is being sang to me, it's about my relationship to the divine.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
It's sexier, right? But it has changed what I am capable of listening to, which I want to say, unfortunately, because there is that like nostalgia, but also,
I mean, you want to just throw 3-6 Mafia on every once in a while. I mean, Jesus Christ, you know. But then, like halfway through the first verse, you're like, "This is why I don't listen to this anymore." Holy shit!
Mine was too short. I listened to a lot of Too Short, and I just can't anymore. So now my middle ground is like E40.
There you go.
I'm like, I can do some E40, and it's not terrible.
E40 is like the Naco of San Francisco hip hop.
I don't know. That might be a little controversial.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it's
well, all right. So the authenticness that you have as a human being and the path that you've risen from, really, you do so much. You've talked about your shop. You've talked about your shamanic practices. I'm sure there's so much more that you're going to be doing in the future. Do you have an idea of what you're kind of moving towards or working towards right now, or?
So the thing that so, you know, just to like kind of touch on the energetic cleansing thing, like just one last time too, like, you know, what we've been really like trying to cultivate here in this space is a lot of like cooperative energy, right? So like even the people that work behind the counter are also energy healers, right? And so we're all kind of just continuing to flow into what we're creating with Awaken Yourself as a whole. And so it actually has kind of turned into its own entity in a lot of ways. So I did a rebrand in May and released my personal brand, which is the Unhinged Shaman. And it's, you know, Awaken Yourself is very like the dark colors, the earthy vibes, and the Unhinged Shaman is like hot pink. Because that's kind of what's happened for me, is stepping more into my femininity, being okay with not having to be so serious all the fucking time,
Yep.
right? You know, being okay, being a little bit more loud and proud about who I am, because even though I've always been authentic and out there and all the things, there were earlier stages of my business, like that little story I was telling you about at the metaphysical market, where, you know, people have questioned me and people have, been a little bit weird, right? And so it's like I kind of felt like I almost had to earn my place
Mm.
in some ways. And now that I have, you know, I got my fucking stripes, I'm like, no, we're just going full force,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I know that we're running out of time, but you know, the journey that I've been on for the last year, um, I actually got really called to work with the goddess. And
Yes.
and so I started a priestess training, and it actually ends in November, where I will be doing my pilgrimage to Egypt.
Mm.
And that has been a whole, like, we could do a whole other episode just about that. And I know Awa already knows. I know you know, sis, right? And so everything that I thought that I knew once again has been under construction.
Mm.
Like I literally have a gong with Mother Mary on the wall right now, and if you would have told me that that was going to happen a year ago, I would have laughed in your fucking face, right?
Yep.
And so that's where, you know, I'm heading, right? Like I still, you know, I teach two shamanic cohorts a year, a fall and a winter. They're 6 month long classes. And I'm going to be, I just released my year-long quantum priestess training. And so my first cohort of that begins in January of 2027. And so I'm just like following the call, right? The body running behind the soul type of shit once
Mm.
again, right? Where I'm like, okay, I'm opening up to the next path. And I feel like so the Unhinged Shaman was born when I went through my divorce,
Mm.
where I started to deconstruct the, oh, I should be, you know, this good wife. I should be this quiet and humble business owner. I should be, you know, the shaman that does the 15-step way to call in the directions. When in all reality, you can say, all right, fucking help me right now,
Yeah.
right? It just be
100%.
like that sometimes, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like sometimes we don't have 15 minutes to call in everybody in their whole team, right? Sometimes it's I need you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so my divorce gave me permission to say fuck it.
Mm.
Right. And the last 3 years, I mean, opening the store, taking this training, um, meeting my partner, getting engaged again,
Mm.
right? Like, you know what I mean? Losing myself and finding myself 10 million fucking times, right? But it has been the most liberating thing in the world because, like I was saying, although I've always been me, like this is just the whole ass 100% good, bad, and different version, right? And again, I know that the previous archetype of the healer was that we have it all together,
God, Lord, let
right?
that die.
Right. But people come in here or they talk to me or they talk to one of the girls who works here or they talk to Adam at a sound bath or they talk to Destiny behind the counter and they're like, thank God. Thank God you guys are talking about the real shit in that room,
Yep.
you know, because none of us are immune
Yeah.
from life, right? So that's been really fun to just start exploring what this new brand for me personally is going to look like. So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm. Fuck yeah.
So if people want to find you, follow you, book with you, where's the best way for them to do that?
So we have many entry points to the data. You can just Google Awaken Yourself Everett. Our Instagram handle is Awaken Yourself Everett. And we have a link tree on all of our pages that have the website. And on the website has all the events we have here, all the healers we have here, all the classes I teach. So everything is on the website, and you can get there through the social media too if you'd like.
Awesome.
You know, and if anyone wants to book with me specifically, I'm the first person on the About Us page. But like I said, we have amazing healers that work here. We have somebody for everybody, in my opinion. So check us out and come buy some rocks too.
Right.
We have lots of pretty crystals. I still make the CBD. We sell it in the store. So we have a little bit of everything for whatever practice it is that you are stepping into or have been in for a long time. We have witchy stuff. We have shamanic stuff. We have goddess stuff. We have everything here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for being you and sharing your arc. I know that's tough sometimes, but seeing where you're at now and knowing that you're still going is just such an inspiration. And for me personally, just thank you so much for doing what you do, because you've impacted my life in a lot of different ways. And I know that the unhinged shaman, that's just like my favorite fucking term. I swear to God, it's so like,
dope.
It's just like that dichotomy, you know, it's just, I love it, you know, play with the words, but I know how many people that you've helped and, you know, can just imagine how many more that are coming. So thanks for doing what you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys, and thank you for having me on. And I know we went over, so I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
It's good.
There's no time limit. We just want to respect time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll definitely get you back and talk about some goddess stuff. So,
Oh yeah, we got a whole priestess episode for sure.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Oh, yes.
I'll sit and observe and throw my 2 cents in where I can.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, love. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too, guys.
Thank you for listening. Remember to like or subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to. And if you found this episode helpful, please comment or share it with a friend. Check out the show notes for links to get in touch with myself, Awa, or our guest. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. This episode was recorded, edited, and produced by Adam Reel.